All right, welcome to week 8 for English 123. We're moving through our last week of the session. We're wrapping things up. We finished our final drafts. Congratulations. I know that's a very challenging assignment. If you haven't written a research paper of that length before, it can be intimidating. It can be overwhelming. But you've made it through for that week. So, moving forward, you're going to continue to develop your writing. It doesn't necessarily stop with this class. It doesn't necessarily, okay, you've learned English composition and that's it. Now you just go on with the other classes. What I really want to encourage you to do from here forward in your coming classes is to use what you've learned here. I've hoped you've learned something significant in the course. I've hoped you've developed your writing skills in some way, in a way that maybe you didn't previously have coming into the class, that now you feel more equipped, maybe more aware, maybe have a better understanding of the writing process. Of course, there are still things to develop in our writing. There's always development taking place, whether you're at an undergraduate level, finishing up composition, or whether you're finishing and graduating your undergraduate, whether you're going into a graduate program. There's always further development, further refining on being able to clearly express your ideas, being able to clearly articulate exactly what you are trying to say and what you want to say, and then supporting that. That's always going to be a process of development, because we'll never quite be perfect. We're striving for perfection. We're striving for absolute clarity, but perhaps it's an ongoing process of striving to really obtain that goal. So don't think it's over. So continue to develop in your next classes. Continue to look for ways to better refine what you've learned here. I would strongly recommend getting a writer's handbook. I would strongly recommend using they say or I say, they say in your further classes, because that will undoubtedly help you with those those little things, those little items of refinement that will just really make a paper shine a little bit more. Use that. I would read it. I would study that book further, read it over and over again. Refer to a handbook as you go through the next few years of your undergraduate program. Continually refer back to composition. And I mean, you could argue, well, I'm not that obsessed with writing. I don't really, I got other things to focus on, to work on. But let me tell you that as you get into other classes, even though you may not be an English major, you may not have a particular interest in composition, it will be something that you will inevitably be doing in your other classes. And it will be something that you will inevitably begin to struggle with in some way. You'll get to a point where you need a little bit more in your writing. And the only way that you'll get that is to have a resource, is to have a reference to go back to, and then to begin to refine that. So you'll make progress, but then you'll kind of plateau. And then you'll need to make progress even that much more, and then plateau, and then make more progress. That's really just how it works. So you'll get maybe stuck in a rut of, you'll fall into a particular pattern of writing where you'll always begin a paper a certain way, or you'll always write a conclusion a certain way, or an introduction a certain way, or you'll rely on a specific type of transition all the time. And you might get comments from professors where, okay, there's some redundancy in your paper, you need to have some more variety. Well, the only way that you get variety is by seeking out more ideas, more instruction. So really, this is just a seed. This course is just a seed that hopefully has been planted for you, and that will begin, you'll need to nurture that. You'll need to further develop that, and it will begin to grow and begin to bear fruit, right? So, to use a Christian analogy, but yes, the writing process will then begin to bear fruit in your academic program, and it will begin to show more of a maturity in your writing, more of a development, and a more of a intellectual understanding of how to approach some of these topics and how to discuss them and analyze them. And then you'll begin to read better. As you begin to read better, you'll begin to write better, you'll begin to speak better. And I don't mean necessarily better in terms of, um, uh, say, in a grammatical sense, but yes, that's true. I don't necessarily mean in a qualitative way, in the sense of intellectually, but that is true. You will begin to have a broadened vocabulary, a more of an academic discourse development with your verbal vocabulary and written vocabulary. But then not only that, you'll begin to write better and read better more in a, say, clearer way. The clarity of things will begin to develop, and that's really what's most important. I mean, for any form of communication, there has to be clarity. If there is any kind of interference or any kind of static, there's any kind of misunderstanding, then that really interrupts or disrupts or impedes communication. So that's really the whole point of this. Is it's an art of communication. It's a communication methodology is really what you've been learning in this course. So again, continue to develop, continue to be mindful, to be aware of the writing process, of your writing abilities, strengths and weaknesses. We all have strengths and weaknesses. You might be really good at conclusions, or you might be really good at transitions, but maybe you struggle with analyzing your quotes. Well, work on analyzing your quotes. Work on thinking of how to break down your quotes into smaller units of information, and then begin to discuss those smaller units of information, and then begin to discuss why they're important to the particular point that you're trying to make. Okay, so maybe you do that well. Maybe you struggle with narrowing down conclusions, or maybe you struggle with a thesis statement, really narrowing down to a specific argumentative thesis statement. Continue to develop. Continue to move forward with this type of process. Now, hopefully, ideally, from finishing this course, you have your own sense of approach to this process. You have an idea of how you like to pre-write. You have an idea of how you like to approach research. I like to do keyword searches in this way to find this type of information. I like to approach a source by maybe reading the abstract first and then going through and skimming the paragraphs, looking at topic sentences, or whatever you prefer to do. That is also in a state of development. You'll begin to become much more efficient in your research, become much more comfortable with the databases and with scholarly research and with reading these sources. That takes time. So you'll begin to develop a preference and a style and approach to how you will research as well, hopefully. So these are things you want to engage. So engaging how you approach the pre-writing and topic development, the idea creation part of it, developing your own style and approach to your research strategy, how you want to find your sources, how you want to extract that information, that evidence for your paper. And then you'll develop a style or an approach to how you will take that information and begin to form it into an actual essay. Whether it means just blocking out your paragraphs, whether it means just going strictly chronological from introduction all the way down to conclusion in order, or maybe you start in the middle, maybe you just start with the one point that you understand the most and you just want to write around that. And then moving on with your own approach to the revision process. We kind of talked about some revision strategies in this course. And so that is also developing for you in the future. So how do you want to approach your revisions? Do you want to just look at your thesis statement and your introduction and start with that? Or do you want to look at your topic sentences and each paragraph as a unit in itself, an isolated unit of information? And then how do you want to look at your sentences? How do you want to look at your word choices? How do you want to look at your punctuation and grammar and mechanics. So it really is, it's about taking this class and then making it your own and then applying it to your other courses. Because inevitably you're going to go through this type of a research paper in some way in some of your classes. If not, I wouldn't necessarily guarantee all, but I would say at least more than half. At least more than half of your classes, I would estimate that you're going to have some type of significant writing assignment like this. Whether you're in the sciences or in the humanities, there's going to involve something. Now, you might be challenged to write out of your particular style of, say, MLA or APA. If you're in the sciences and you take an English course, you'll need to write an MLA. If you're in an English major and you go into the sciences or the psychology, you'll need to write an APA. If you go into, say, a history course, you might be asked to write in Chicago Travian. That might be one that you'll have to encounter. So you might be having to adapt to these different styles as well. So my recommendation is to also be in a state of development and flexibility with MLA and APA, acquiring that. You may rely on a handbook for citation styles and in-text citation requirements and all of that, which is fine. It's fine to match up what you're working on with a reference to make sure that you have all those tedious little punctuation in there, periods and italics and quotation marks and capital letters, just right in your works cited reference page. That's okay to refer back to that. As you continue to work on that and continue to do it more often, you'll begin to memorize certain things. But it's not likely that you'll memorize all of it. The MLA and APA manuals are technical. It's a vast amount of information. Not all of it applies to every single writing assignment that you will have. So it's not necessary to really memorize everything. But it is good to memorize. It saves time to memorize some of it that you're going to be using most often. And those are the citations and the work site and the reference page formats for your most basic types of sources: books, journals, and websites. So those are worth memorizing. But then again, you may still need to refer back. I would avoid those automatic generators for citations, those citation generators. I would avoid those because they end up becoming formatted completely incorrectly, or they're just off. They're not guaranteed to be correct. So you can use them, of course, but you want to make sure that you to check back with that to make sure that they're accurate. So don't always take it for granted that, oh, this machine did it for me, so it's obviously going to be correct. It may not be, so don't necessarily take it for granted. So as this class, as you've seen, there's many different elements to it that involve processes, methodologies. And so again, it's just coming down now to you acquiring that and then using it for your other courses. And you might not, your next course that you take, if there's a research paper, you might forget some of this. You might not use every step. You might skip steps. You might avoid steps. I didn't like that step. I'm not going to do that anymore. Well, I think it's worth going through the steps. You're going to create a quality paper. I think all of the information that you've been exposed to in this course will help you produce a quality paper. Will it be an A paper? Maybe not. Maybe not. That depends on you and the amount of refinement that you put into your paper. But I think that you could still have the potential to turn in quality work just by the basics of what you learned in this class. And I'm pretty certain that you can still access this course and these lecture videos throughout, your remaining courses. You can always refer back. If you're like, what was that one video that we did in 123, that lecture video where he talked about whatever. You can always refer back to this. Any of the PowerPoint, the essay essentials, or the sentence structure and the revision strategies, any of that stuff, that's of course yours to keep, yours to use for any future courses. Which, if you did, I mean, I believe that would certainly help to produce good work. But again, it's just all about you and moving forward and taking whatever skills and tools and tricks you may have picked up here and then moving forward. So that's where we're at. Okay, so now we're moving to a reflection. This week is just a looking back on this process and your personal involvement in that. How things worked out academically for you, how things worked out in the process of working through this information. I know it can be very challenging, and there may be some moments or circumstances within your experience that have really been daunting, perhaps insurpassable, perhaps can I really get this done? Well, that's all detail that we will be reflecting on in this week. And also, I want to strongly recommend approaching this week, this reflection, in terms of how your faith may have been challenged. Not necessarily faith in the sense of, will I still believe when I finish this course, but faith in, and how has it enhanced your faith? How has the Lord seen you through this course? What sorts of strength, what sorts of strength and inspiration, and how has He seen you through this course? Where have you been challenged? Where have you seen victory in certain elements of the course? Have you had breakthroughs? Have you had a moment of breakthrough in your paper where it's just, oh, okay, I didn't understand that before, but now I do? And has the Lord enabled you to understand that? Has the Lord given you a certain understanding, certain insight into the details of this class? Because as we know, ultimately, our understanding, our knowledge, and it is all wrapped in what is revealed to us by the Lord. So, and even in an academic class, we may think it's all up to me. I've got to know these things. Well, no, I from my own experience, know that the Lord will see you through. He will open up help open up your understanding to certain things that maybe you didn't understand going into the course. So how has that developed for you in this class? Have you had any kind of an experience like that, where it is not necessarily miraculous, but has it been something where I never experienced this before, I never understood this before, and this has really been a real learning experience as the Lord has guided me through and led me through this whole thing? So we're working on a reflection assignment. So we'll talk about the specific details of that reflection assignment in the next video. It's probably something that you haven't maybe done for another course. Perhaps it might be similar to a literary narrative, similar to a creative writing narrative, but this is nonfiction. So it will have some elements of creative writing in it, but not necessarily creative writing. But we'll talk about that in the next video. But for this coming up, this assignment that's coming up is a reflection on what we've done in this course. It is an examination of some moments of breakthrough that you may have had, some moments of being able to finally get through a particular obstacle in the course, and perhaps maybe some elements of faith along the way. I didn't think I was going to get through this, and the Lord saw me through this week. I was able to get all my work done for this week, even though I had this and this and this and this going on. The trials that may take place surrounding the course. I will say this though, there is a personal element to it, but I wouldn't make it all personal. I wouldn't necessarily share, certain personal information. I would still keep it academic and professional, of course. It isn't necessarily it's not a diary entry. It's not a private entry. This is something that will be read, of course, by me. So I wouldn't necessarily just write any kind of any detail about, or it's not any and all detail. I would certainly keep the detail to, academic, professional, minded writing, writing that will certainly honor the Lord, but it will involve some personal experience in there as well. There is room for the I voice as well, but I would use discernment and discretion in what you do share in this paper. Okay, because not every trial and not every circumstance that we may experience as students outside of academics necessarily is appropriate to share. It's personal nature. It's a personal nature that should only be between you and those involved or whomever, and the Lord, of course, not necessarily shared for an academic course. But I just leave it to you to use your discretion in what you do share in relation to any kind of trial or whatever that you might have had, and related to the course. But I don't want to go on too long for the sake of the timing here. I'm going to end this here. But again, I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure. It's been a privilege. It's been a blessing to really walk you through this experience and to hopefully share what I could to help you along. Hopefully some things that will benefit you in the long run as far as your upcoming courses and any further writing assignments you might have. All right. Well, take care, and we thank you for your hard work and for remaining in the course. All right. Good luck. Thank you.